call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Beloit City Council. It is now 5 minutes after 7 o'clock on Monday, April 1st, 2013, here at 100 State Street, Beloit, Wisconsin. And first item is roll call.
Roll call shows all councilors present.
Second item is Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, we have special orders of the day and announcements. Council Vice President will give the item 3A, a proclamation in the recognition of Fair Housing Month.
Whereas April 2013 marks the 45th anniversary of the National Fair Housing Law, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, and therefore is an appropriate time for all citizens to reflect on the principles which led to a national policy of fair and equal housing opportunities across the United States. And whereas fair and equal opportunity in housing means that persons of equal income have the same access to the sale, rental, and financing of all housing regardless of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, family status, marital status, sexual orientation, age, or ancestry. And whereas the fair housing is the policy of the City of Beloit, and the implementation of that policy requires the positive commitment, involvement, and support of each of our citizens, now therefore be it resolved that the Beloit City Council does hereby proclaim the month of April 2013 as Fair Housing Month, and does hereby encourage all citizens to abide by the letter and spirit of the fair housing laws, and asks the citizens of the city to join in reaffirming the obligation and commitment to fair housing opportunities for all. Adopted this first day of April 2013, City Council of the City of Beloit.
Council members, the Equal Opportunities and Human Relations Commission, or EOHRC, has the responsibility to receive and investigate any complaints of discriminatory practices concerning housing in the City of Beloit, and how similar discriminatory practices can be avoided in the future. The Commission believes that raising awareness, the citizenry is empowered then to protect their own rights, and those who may infringe upon those rights are discouraged from engaging in unfair practices of an empowered people. To celebrate Fair Housing Month, the Wisconsin Fair Housing Network sponsors an annual statewide poster contest for school-aged children. This contest is created to raise awareness about the importance of providing equal housing opportunities to all people regardless of race, sex, color, national origin, disability, or family status. Each year, Wisconsin Fair Housing Network chooses a theme for the posters. This year's theme, Fair Housing, a bridge that connects. This year, the Commission is holding a local poster contest in which fair housing posters created by the children of the Merrill Community Center will be displayed outside this forum at City Hall. Residents can vote for their favorite poster until April 12, 2013, and an award will be presented with the winning artist during the next City Council meeting. All posters will then be submitted to the state for participation and completion in the statewide competition. Please take the time after the meeting to enjoy the posters and vote for one that you like the best. Although Civil Rights Act was passed in 1968, discriminatory practices still continue. The Commission believes awareness is a bridge, and if each of us helps build and maintain these bridges, we can help end all forms of discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3B is the presentation of the Green City Award from the Residential Recycling Conference. Vice President, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. Yes, Vice President Spitzer is going to remain up here and help me present these awards. This particular award was sponsored by one of the Cranes Chicago publications, Waste and Recycling News, and they have been holding a residential recycling conference each year, which is a very serious event. There must have been 40-plus vendors there alone. There were 2+ days of educational sessions, about 2.5 days, so this is a really serious look at recycling. And one of the things they do is provide these Green City Awards, which are based on population. We were in the entry-level population category. I think it was 30,000 or less, something like that, or 35,000 and less. There were 2 other cities in there. I think there were 3 finalists that were nominated by Cranes from each of the population categories. And we were very gratified. Beth Jacobson, the assistant to the city manager, who's our sustainability director, was at the conference, and she was in attendance with me for the award. And obviously, I wanted to present this tonight to the 2 people in Beloit that are probably, well, not probably, that are most responsible for the city's recycling program and the tremendous success that we've achieved in that program. And well, let me call them up here. Chris Walsh and Jodine Saunders, would you come up, please? Join us at the podium. While they're doing that, I'll make a couple of other comments. This recognition was in part due to the comprehensive and successful nature of our curbside recycling program, plus all the other special recycling events we run every year, from doing electronics, doing special waste, etc., our Saturday morning drop-off sites. But the award was also intended to recognize cities that have done an extraordinary job of promoting recycling, getting young people involved in the recycling effort. And as you know, with PW Fox and some of the other special events and activities we do every year, including the annual Spring Public Works Open House, we promote recycling very, very hard. And that was another one of the things that the membership really liked that resulted in the City of Beloit being selected in 2013 as the Green City Award winner in our population category. And this, of course, is a national award. So we were very, very proud and very pleased to be there to accept this, and it's a great pleasure tonight to ask Councilor Spreitzer if he would present this to Chris and Jodine in recognition of all of their efforts on behalf of the city and in managing the city's recycling program.
Congratulations.
Just real quick, I guess I'd go back in history, and I really want to thank all of the staff that made this happen. And from the very beginning, there was a dedication that from the operators, the clerical, dispatch, the supervisors, they wanted this to work. And surprisingly, their enthusiasm really won over the residents, and our diversion rate has remained for 20 years top in our state. So I want to thank them, and I also wanted to tell you, and I'm not sure that you are aware of this, but about 2/3 plus of all the operators in the city, which means our bus drivers, water, wastewater, come through the solid waste program. That's how they're introduced into the city. And then they kind of go into their own specialties. And I thought then Jody would tell you what's going to be new this year.
Well, we have had the electronics already so far this year. It's at the drop-off now every Saturday instead of twice a year. And we're going to start taking recycled batteries and cell phones starting next Saturday. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Item 3C is a presentation of the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Award for the Ken Hendricks Memorial Bridge Design and Construction.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, it's really an honor to be presenting this award. This is a Wisconsin Department of Transportation Award presented on a statewide basis, and there are a number of these presented each year. They're basically design awards. This award was presented to GRAF for the Ken Hendricks Memorial Bridge design. You'll recall we did the dedication on this last September, and it's not only a beautiful structure, but it's a very functional multimodal bridge that has the bike trail across it, has pedestrian sidewalks, plus a 4-lane motor vehicle, or 4 lanes for motor vehicle traffic. Also has the lighting and some other accoutrements which make it obviously aesthetically very pleasing as well. So we were very, very pleased. Unfortunately, they couldn't have anyone here tonight, so accepting the award is going to be Mike Flesch, the Beloit City engineer, who also oversaw this project along with the Department of Transportation, had a lot of input into the design process. So Mike, if you'd step forward. Councilor Spreitzer, if you would present that.
It's Grafe, not Graff. Grafe. Grafe and the DOT coordinated the final design of this structure based on the vision of the City of Beloit, Beloit 2020, and Schreiber Anderson Associates. Al Linder of Grafe was our project manager and was not able to be here tonight. I would like to thank him and the rest of the design team for a great job well done in providing the City of Beloit with a structure that we can all be very proud of for many years to come. Thank you.
All right, now we move on to item 4, public hearings, and Madam Clerk.
A proposed resolution authorizing a conditional use permit to allow a limited vehicle use gas station and indoor alcohol sales in a C2 neighborhood commercial district for the property located at 2240 Cranston Road for a proposed Casey's General Store. The Plan Commission recommended denial 4-0.
Madam Christensen.
Casey's General Stores is in the process of acquiring the subject property from its current owner. The acquisition of the property is contingent upon receiving the conditional use permit. They do intend to construct and establish a Casey's General Store with indoor alcohol sales. Later on your agenda is a certified survey map to actually create the parcel that the gas station would be on if approved. The property is 8.8 acres in area and has remained undeveloped, just an agricultural use. They are proposing to divide off the one lot that would be 2.8 acres in area and to construct a one-story, 4,355 square foot building as a convenience store along with a gasoline island canopy. Even though the staff report says 10 dispensers, that's what the original site plan showed. They're saying they're going to be 8 dispensers, 22 off-street parking stalls, and 1 accessible parking stall. They've met all off-street parking requirements. They'd originally intended to operate 24 hours, 7 days a week, and to sell beer and wine to its customers. They did at Plan Commission say that they would be willing to go 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., that they wouldn't need to be open between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. So that was a change that occurred at the Plan Commission. There's a primary driveway proposed on Cranston Road and a secondary driveway on Chapir Road. Plan Commission did hold a public hearing at their last meeting. We did hear from Jerry Murphy from Daily Murphy Wish expressing some concern that a number of years ago the city had said it wouldn't put a gas station there, and it was zoned C1 office district up until 2007. So just to remind you, the history is that in 2007, council did rezone that from office to neighborhood commercial. The owner had requested that in 2007, and they did approve it. And that he felt that that should remain more of an office corridor, and that he wanted that business to have the similar hours as he did, and that he closes at 10:30. He would like them to close at 10:30, and that he was concerned about the driveways being across from each other. That when people are pulling out maybe to go left as part of a funeral processional, that could cause conflicts, and that if you're going to approve it, he would like a lot of landscaping so that it was buffered. So that was kind of what he expressed at the meeting. After much discussion, Plan Commission did come up with a number of conditions, which we did include in the resolution, but ultimately they did unanimously recommend denial. We did put those conditions in this resolution anyway, since the board did take a considerable amount of time in generating them. So the resolution before you tonight does have 9 conditions. The first, which just establishes the use, both the gas station and the indoor alcohol sales for beer and wine, that they shall obtain and retain all applicable liquor licenses while the conditional use is established and maintained, that the convenience store and gas pumps may only operate between the hours of 5 a.m. and 10:30 p.m., that the exterior building walls may be a combination of brick and ephes, and I didn't comment on that staff had originally requested a full brick building, and what they proposed in their photos was a combination of brick and then ephes on the top. And so that is what was included in the condition, was to have that brick ephes mix. Landscaping shall be doubled to duly screen adjacent properties from the activity of the gas station. If the city engineer deems it necessary, a deceleration lane shall be added to the right-of-way abutting Cranston Road. If the city engineer deems it necessary, sidewalks shall be added to the rights-of-way along Cranston Road and Shapiro Road. The access driveway along Cranston Road shall be directly aligned with the right-of-way on the north side of Cranston Road that abuts the western boundary of the property located at 2355 Cranston Road. And then just our standard condition about major changes coming back through this process and minor changes being approved administratively. At our agenda review, we did discuss an option of moving the building and providing a condition that would put the building along Cranston Road with the gas pumps inside to the south. And that was handed out to council this evening as well, just so the public is aware of that. And Planning Commission did recommend denial, 4-0.
Thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing on item 4A, the proposed resolution authorizing conditional use into a limited vehicle service use. Please approach the podium, state your name and address.
PowerPoint is available. The controller is right there. The right button goes forward, the left button goes back. Should be turned on. When you get ready to start, they'll bring it up on the, there you go.
Okay.
You're up on the screen.
You're on.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Ryan Swanson. I'm with ARC Design Resources. We're an engineering consulting firm down in Loves Park. With me tonight is Brian Dupree with Casey's General Store, based from their corporate office in Ankeny, Iowa. I guess I'd like to just give a real brief overview. What you have in front of you are just some copies of the slides, and I also have on the boards here just to try to make it a little easier to see. Casey's General Store is proposing approximately 4,200 square foot convenience store, as mentioned, with 8 fueling dispensers. The site is just, as mentioned, just under 3 acres as proposed. The parent parcel is roughly 9 acres. Overall drainage, some specific engineering issues. Drainage is proposed in the rear, this rear open green space area. The site is well served with utilities. Obviously, being in the city itself, there's ample access to water, sewer, and the franchise utilities as well. We are, as part of the CSM, we are proposing to dedicate a portion of land, both along Shapiro Road, for a future widening effort, as well as some additional land that was requested along Cranston Road right away. Very good. This is a little bigger view of with an aerial included. It shows the overall parent parcel here and our proposed land split. The transmission line coming down the middle, of course. Access, as mentioned, primarily proposed on Cranston, directly across from the funeral home driveway. Another access proposed on Shapiro. These access points are approximately 450 feet from the main intersection here, and they're pushed basically as far away as Casey's could do, to allow adequate queuing and stacking without interfering with the intersection itself. The other component, these access points will be shared with a future user, future developer. I think the city staff has made it their desire that they would not wish an additional access point along Cranston Road. This would serve as a shared access for that future use as well. The site itself is zoned commercial. There are many permitted and conditional retail uses allowed, for the parcel. The proposed, I guess the main portion of our development is directly across from the large parking field to the north that serves a funeral home. We've got large green space areas, both along the front, on both access point or both frontages. there have been some concerns, obviously, with staff and potential neighbor concerns that we've looked at. We feel that this is a positive design in terms of leaving this corner open as possible. The building and canopy are approximately 230 feet away from the intersection, and then you have the right-of-way widths as well to add on top of that before you get to any of these neighbors. Hours of operation were mentioned. Casey's would propose 5 to 11. Lighting, I'll mention that briefly. I don't have a slide for this one, but I believe it's in your packets. This is a photometric plan which would be distributed to staff as part of the normal review process. This board shows basically a 0 light level, and it's basically occurs throughout the right-of-way. So we have no spillover of light. Casey's uses a or all LED full cutoff lighting. If you've seen Rockton, Illinois, that's a good example. It's more subdued. The lighting is not as bright as some of the older gas stations that are around, but as you can see from this photometric plan, there's really full cutoff of the light levels, really just at the right-of-way. And frankly, most of these areas inside here are negligible, but this exhibit shows where they are at 0, truly at 0. There was an alternate layout that was proposed when we first started. Turn it that way, yeah. Our discussion with staff. One more. Oops. One more time. And we did consider this with Casey's. This is where they had proposed the store here on the corner, trying to create a vantage point from when you enter the city. You'd see the store at the corner. This created some concerns. We did work up a concept plan and worked with Casey's on it. Took some time with it. There's obviously some concerns with, though, these pumps not lining up with the store. Safety concerns, trying to prevent drive-offs, fuel shut-off issues. There's also some concerns about how this was kind of open in terms of ingress, safe ingress. It's more of a free-for-all. We did look at some variants of this, but ultimately there's some operational concerns that Casey's had, that this was just not conducive to laying out their store. I guess I want to add too that this puts a lot of the noise, the activity, just that much closer to these neighbors on this side of the development on the across Shope here. The proposed building, as mentioned, is a mix of brick and some EFS. These are just some examples. These are in your packets as well, on just one page, showing a hip roof, shingled roof, brick columns. It's really I think a well-designed building for this particular site. The building in Rockton does not have the hip roof. It's more of a commercial setting there, a traditional commercial setting. So it's a little more. I guess it's got parapets, a little more straight looking versus this roof. So there's a view from the rear. Some screening is visible up at the top, just above the gutter line there.
All the mechanics too on this one. All the mechanics are on the roof now. We've moved them from the ground up to the roof. We've shielded them, and you can see a little bit of the shield there. Again, we want to clean up the back of the store, make it safer. Also, just to minimize.
Could you step towards the mic?
I'm sorry. Again, we've put all the mechanics up on the roof to get them up off the ground, as far as from an appearance standpoint, for a safety issue, and as well as that we put that screening up there so anyone looking from the back side of the building, yes, you'll see that, but you won't see any of the mechanics we do have up on the roof. This is a new concept of ours. It's kind of evolved here over the last couple of years. I'll take a step back. My name is Brian Dupre. I'm with Casey's Corporate. I'm a real estate associate for them, and I find site selections. This is the interior of our store. It's all tile. that you can see kind of the coffee counter. We've got the seating area. In back of the coffee counters are made-to-order subs, our pizza, if you want to keep flipping it. This is some of the items that would be on the opposite side of the store. There's over 30,000 items that we sell in our store. We have a full back row of beverages. Again, great detail goes into the store. Again, it's a little over 4,300 square feet, 104 feet wide. This is the front counter. Again, as you would walk into the store. This is our made-to-order subs, our kitchen area. We've got the warmers there that would have a variety of sandwiches, pizzas, chicken, those types of items for people to come in and grab and go. And again, our coffee dispenser area, you can see the fountains in the background. We have the frozen drinks. We have the self-serve ice cream. All that's located there in the store. So what you would see in the Rockton store is identical to what's there, the only difference being just the roof line is different. I know there's some concerns about the alcohol being sold there. We have 3 coolers that will serve, that we utilize for beer. There is, if you look to the right, you see the 3 doors to the right, there is a walk-in door. That is a walk-in cooler, approximately 8 by 10. It's not particularly big, but we might carry an end cap of wine, but that's it. So there are occasions where we will have beer out on display on the floor. That's more of a seasonal thing, especially around Super Bowl and things like that, playoffs, where we might. But typically everything that we serve as far as beer goes would be behind the cooler doors.
That's all I really had in terms of an overview, and we can take any questions or.
Oh, we may have questions later, but after the public hearing.
If I could just add one more thing.
Sure.
As I said, I'm the real estate associate site selection. I cover Wisconsin, Minnesota, the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Kansas. We have, in past, Wisconsin's been kind of put to the back burner for Casey's. We have about 10 stores in the entire state. Recently, a push has been to come back to, especially southwest Wisconsin, to aggressively go after sites. I was commissioned to go out and find what we call an A-site locations. I found 4 that I presented back to our executives, this being obviously one of them. This was the top of their list. They loved this location. They loved the traffic. They loved the corner. You know, it's not often that you find a vacant corner with over 26,000 cars that pass in front of it. So I bring that up because I wanted to point out that Casey's is fully committed to this corner. We're very excited about being in Beloit. Again, we just launched that store just to the south, which has taken off and done very well. We pride ourselves on being good neighbors. We understand there's concerns, but Casey's bread and butter has always been in a neighborhood, in a residential area, servicing those neighbors. And again, we take tremendous pride, again, from hiring local. We want to be part of the community. And we don't take these sites lightly. Again, you know, when you invest $2.5 to $3 million in a particular site, we want to make sure it goes. And so this site was selected because of its because of what it brings. And again, we think we can bring tremendous value to the area. We want to be good and conscious neighbors, but we're hoping we can move forward. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to come forward and speak on item 4A? Yes, please approach the podium, give your name and address.
Thank you.
My name is David Francis. My address is 1211 Fillmore Street, Denver, Colorado. I'm here to speak on behalf of the proposed conditional use permit, on behalf of the 2 families that own the currently own the 9-acre parcel. I appreciate the council's opportunity here to make my comments heard. Like I said, I traveled from Denver, and but I grew up in Beloit. I'm the proud graduate of Wright School, Roosevelt Junior High, Beloit Memorial High School. The property in question is presently owned in a entity that's owned by 2 widows. My mother, Patricia Francis, who's 85, she lives in Denver, and Nancy Stuckey, who's in her 70s. The widows basically have come to own the property because their husbands, who were business partners, my father, Jack Francis, and Kent Roberts, back in the day, acquired this property in the early 80s, and it's pretty much been for sale for the entire 30 years. I did when I went through the file, I did a computation of the taxes that have been paid over the 30 years, and it's close to $100,000. The property is zoned as neighborhood commercial. It was never intended to be agricultural from the owner's point of view. We did, I should say, my father and his partner allowed a farmer to plant some crops there to kind of mitigate the cost of maintaining the property, but it was always their intention to subdivide and sell the property for a commercial use. As I mentioned, my father at one time was a pretty important citizen of Beloit. He and his partner owned Timar Construction Company, and they did work throughout the city and the Midwest. And I mentioned that just because, and as a former resident of Beloit, I want the council to realize that the family isn't in it to make a quick buck, or, and we also care about, who buys the property and what they do with it. We did some research on Casey's, and we're very impressed. They're a company that was founded in Iowa in 1959. They're a public company. They've grown to over 1,700 stores throughout the Midwest. As the gentleman from Casey's indicated, they only have 10 in Wisconsin. But last year they did close to $2 billion in sales, several hundred million in profit. But they also reinvested a considerable amount, multiple millions, in local community charities, and so they are good citizens as far as we can tell. I also wanted to let the council know how important it is for my mother and Mrs. Stuckey at this stage of their lives. An opportunity like this doesn't come along very often. As I indicated, the family in one form or another has owned this property for more than 30 years. So to sum up, I think it would be a plum for Wisconsin, for Beloit, if Casey were to go through with this major investment. It would obviously bring employment opportunities. It would expand the tax base, and the quality of the store and their service would be good for the neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Anyone else, please approach the podium and state your name and address.
Jerry Murphy, 2355 Cranston Road, the owner of Daley Murphy Wish and Associates Funeral Home. As you all know, there were some concerns on my part, and there still are those safety concerns, and I don't think any of that has changed. And in any of the new diagrams that I've witnessed this evening, and I guess basically all I want to say is that the council 25 years ago had a vision. That vision has been maintained since then, and I hope this council tonight continues the vision that the council 25 years ago had. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jean Rogers-Wadle from Dewey Service Eastside Mobile. We have been in that neighborhood since the early 70s with a service station, not a convenience store, service station. There is, if you guys do look, 4 convenience stores within a half-mile area of that corner. And when they say 8 gas dispensers, most of ours have 3 to 4. 8 dispensers, you're looking more like a travel center. And we really want that in a neighboring area for kids and everything. And the way these architects are talking, they're worried about the noise, they're worried about the lighting issues. My station has converted to the LED lighting outside. So if you want to see what LED lighting is, it's right there too. But to put all the noise and the lighting, and this is all up front, this is what it's going to be in a neighborhood. And it's going to be twice the size of what any other neighborhood gas station has at this time. And I'm really hoping that you guys decide to go with the Planning Commission and turn it down. Thank you.
Please approach the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Pradeep Patel. I'm 1896 Murphy Woods, Beloit. I have a concern. I own the business also right across from Dewey's, which is a Citgo gas station. I do have concern about that. Getting the business is basically, as of individual owners, we cannot even compete with cases what they have. So it is really hard for us to do the business as an individual owner against a big giant corporation. So I would recommend to denial for that. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else wish to come forward and speak?
Hi, my name is Harry Samra. I own a business, 1902 Chopin Road. I have a gas station, and which is Casey's going to be right next to me, and we have a concern that their station is going to be bigger than all 4 of the stations. They're going to take the business, or they're going to put couple guys out of business. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to come forward and speak on item 4A? Second call for persons to come forward and speak on item 4A. Third and final call for persons to come forward and speak on item 4A. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing on item 4A. And I think rather than going for a motion and then discussing it, I think I'd like to go ahead and just open it up for discussion. First up would be Councilor Lupke.
I wanted to state early that I have an opinion, and I want to make some comments, but I don't want to have any appearance of conflict of interest because I have a family member that has property on that, so I will recuse myself from voting and discussion.
Thank you. Councilor Levy.
Just a couple of questions, sir. Julie. Do you have any idea what was the reasoning for plan denial?
I'm not absolutely certain why they recommended denial. They did discuss it at great length and did make the motion for approval, subject to conditions. I did know that one member was going to vote against because he had voiced that he knew somebody who lived in the neighborhood who was opposed to having a gas station on the corner. But the other 3 seemed to be moving towards approval, so I'm actually not completely certain. They did hear from Mr. Murphy about his concerns, so it may just be they didn't feel the gas station was appropriate there.
Okay.
But I don't have a firm sense of why they actually voted no at the end of the day.
Okay. Did you receive any resident concerns or comments?
No.
None? And do you know the possibility of, will there be a lot of large truck traffic in and out of this establishment?
We did discuss that at Planning Commission. There will be some truck traffic, but it'll be delivery truck traffic. This gas station is not expected to generate traffic off the interstate. It's too far. If you're just going to stop and get gas and get something to eat, you're going to stop on Milwaukee Road, you're going to stop at the station that's up right off of Chaupier, or you're going to stop in South Beloit. They will have some delivery trucks, and I know that Casey's can better speak to that, but it would just be delivery trucks, delivering the materials that they're going to sell in the store.
Okay.
And the traffic and Cranston Road, those are arterial roads, and they can handle that truck traffic.
Okay, Mr. President, if I could ask Casey's
absolutely,
a couple
please.
questions, if I can have the representative from. Two questions as it relates to the truck traffic. Do you foresee, I know we're talking delivery trucks, do you know approximately what time of day they would be delivering, and approximately how many deliveries would you get a week?
Great question. And I don't know if I can answer directly either one of them. We have the way the store is laid out, the loading here for the semi. So the semi would back in, obviously the furthest away from the residential area, obviously making less of an impact. The truck would back in, it's a full semi, and so that minimizes the numbers of trips. We will load the truck through our corporate office. We have a distribution center there. So the only other types of deliveries that come in besides that, we'll have some beverages that will be delivered, as well as any local dairy products. In other words, we utilize bread and dairy more from a local aspect as opposed to being shipped out. So I believe, thanks up here. And the fuel will be delivered as necessary. So, just depending on the volume of sales that comes from there, that would just be according to that. So, that one is just strictly on usage. I would say a delivery truck is probably once a week, maybe twice at the most.
Now, do you foresee any truck there overnight on the property, staging overnight or running overnight?
No. Again, because the deliveries will be made when the employees are there.
Okay.
They have to be there to help unload it. So there would be no 2 a.m. deliveries, but if that's what you're asking.
Okay. And somewhere down the road, if this does go through, I would hope that one thing that you could look at, because we do have a lot of school traffic in that area, maybe looking at the times that the deliveries would come to make sure, because I know that's a heavy area when it comes to schools. We have one, Morgan's not too far, and then we have Robinson on the other end. So I know it's wide scale, but traffic on that street could be very heavy. Okay. That's, I think, all that I have for you. I do have a question for engineering, though, Mike. That's okay. As far as, I know there was some talk about the deceleration lane. If engineering feels that it's warranted, do you foresee that being an issue? And sidewalks, do you think we need to look at that now? Or
Sidewalks probably will be warranted. The deceleration lane, probably not.
Okay. All right. And then one other comment that I have, I know one of the concerns that I've heard over and over again is the fact that we're going to have competition among other businesses that's in the same area, general vicinity, but I want to remind the businesses that right now you're competing with each other anyway. I mean, I know you all may know each other and you may form together to sign the petition, but in essence, you're all competing against each other right now. And I think you've all done a great job of saying, okay, we have this competition coming to our neighborhood. What do we need to do to make sure that we don't lose business? And I think that's the kind of mindset that I guess I would like to see if this was to move forward. So I know we're all nervous about competition, but I think you've done well where you're at for so many years because you know how to adjust and deal with competition that's coming in. That's all the questions that I have.
Thank you. Councilor Spreitzer.
Thank you. A couple of questions for Casey. Just to start out with and get a little bit better sense of your business model, can you give me a sense of about how many people would typically be employed at a store of this size?
Sure. Roughly 20 to 25 full and part-time employees. Typically a single store manager, a couple assistants, and then obviously other associates, full-time and part-time, would be part of that.
And about what portion of that would be full-time usually?
I can't speak for that. That'll be an operational, especially based upon hours. But it definitely will be a mix.
As far as the products that you sell, aside from the sort of what would be classified as snack food, it looks like there's a dairy section. Are there any other kinds of food, or is it pretty much dairy, drinks, and snack food?
There'll be items, and thank you. I apologize. I don't mean to cut you off. There'll be items in there that would be items that you would normally find at a grocery store. Everything from deodorant to spaghetti sauce to pasta to items that oftentimes a vast majority of our stores are in towns of 5,000 or less. So oftentimes we're the only thing in the store. So what we put in this store is identical to what we basically put into all of them. So they're items that maybe I don't feel like going all the way into the Walmart or to the Piggly Wiggly or wherever it is, because all I need to do is pick up one or two items. So I hope that answers your question.
Sure. And then just getting to the question of layout, I know you responded to one of the layouts that had been suggested. There was another layout that came up in discussion that I thought might be an interesting idea, and I believe staff were discussing it with you before the meeting, which is basically to just flip that around completely. Can you respond to that as a possibility?
Sure. And that was presented to us tonight. Obviously, we haven't had the time to kind of go back. Typically, not only with Casey's, but almost all convenience stores, they want the pumps, the store facing outward for several reasons. One is obviously from an appearance, people can see what's going on there. There's a safety aspect, visibility, and things are hidden that can invite issues, that can invite problems. So we want to make sure that it's safe not only for our customers, but it's for our staff as well. Part of the issue, and again, I'm not the person who makes this decision, and again, we'd have to lay it out in turning it. Obviously, Cranston is the busy road. Cranston's going to carry roughly 16,000 cars. This portion of Chopir is probably below 5,000. We're looking at the visibility of a 4-lane road, trying to get that visibility outward, because obviously that is the other reason for the store configuration the way it was. We want to be very sensitive to the residential area down this way. By positioning the store this way, it blocks a great deal, both visibility and noise, from this area down here as far as the residential go. We understand the funeral home's concern. Again, it is a 4-lane arterial. I wish I had a map of the other businesses further down. Perhaps they're all with their backs to the store, backs to the road. I'm not quite sure. But again, we set up the store to face Cranston, because that's obviously the busiest road. But more importantly, I think to open up the corner, to make it as far as visibility goes, as far as traffic going either direction, it opens it up a little bit further. We push the store then as far away from the residential as we can.
And can you give me a little more clear idea of what the landscaping represents, the different green circles, particularly along Chopir and Cranston? Are we talking trees, shrubs, some idea of that?
I can address that. It's a mix of shade trees, ornamentals, shrubs, and some perennials. We put this together. I've got a landscape architect in Madison that put this together for us, looking at your codes. Obviously, it needs to go through staff review when we get to that stage, if we get that far. But we feel this meets code. We concentrated on a majority of the shade trees. Obviously, you've got requirements for shade trees along the roadways. What this represents, the larger symbols are the trees, of course. We've got some groupings of shrubs mostly along Cranston. What we did in the internal portions, we concentrated the shrubs closer to the building for better screening effect. What you see out here are some of the existing trees that we're going to try to keep. I think we had to take one out because of the driveway, but we're trying to maintain those as well and then supplement with some additional ones.
Thank you. That's all for now, at least.
Councilor Van den Bogart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, to the Casey individuals, if you could, gentlemen, Mr. I think it was Swanson and Dupree, was it? All right. I share the concern, and I'm sure my fellow councilors do too, in terms of screening the residents on Chopir from some of the light and perhaps activity. But we also have an issue on Cranston Road where it's essentially an office park setting, and the suggestion to reverse your building and put some perhaps fake windows on the back end or backside of Casey's would in fact preserve that office type streetscape. So I'm trying to balance those two things. Is there any thought, as some national chains are starting to consider, of putting in natural gas dispensing capacity at this location for natural gas fired vehicles? We're not quite there yet in many situations, but I note that a Quick Trip in Janesville is installing a new facility at the intersection of Highway 51 and Avalon Road, and they're putting in natural gas for small fleet vehicles. Any thought that Casey's might be doing that as we go forward?
Great question. At this time, I don't think I can answer that. Obviously, as markets develop, as businesses change, we want to adapt to that. At this time, we haven't gone into that. That doesn't say going in the future we won't. And perhaps the building, again, I don't know enough about as far as mechanically what needs to be put in, but perhaps those things can be put in ready for that to come, should that market. At this time, right now, Casey's has not embraced that.
Are either of you aware of what, if any, policies Casey's has in terms of closing stores if they fail to meet the margins necessary? I'm familiar, for example, again, with a Casey's store that was purchased or built on the south side of Janesville on Beloit Avenue, which was there for a while and then was closed, and I don't know the status of it, but it's something else now.
Yeah, I think that store was actually closed and donated to the city. Is that the one kind of south of town off of 11? I believe that store was actually closed and donated to the city. Again, I can find that out. Some of the stores in the past, we went back and repurchased franchise stores. Every Casey's that you see out there is a company-owned store. We're the third largest company-owned convenience store chain in the country. We have a little over 1,700 stores through about 14 Midwest states. So right now, every Casey's you see out there is company-owned. We have closed some stores in the past. Most of those are some of the smaller, older ones. We take a great deal of pride. We take a great deal of due diligence to make sure that hopefully we can minimize that. Again, a $2.5 to $3 million investment on our part is not taken lightly, mainly because we're a publicly traded company and stockholders don't like to see that kind of stuff. So everything about this location tells us it's a fantastic location. I know there's some competitors in the area. Our opinion on the entire area is that it's underserved. Again, we never go into a site with the thought that if we come in here, one or two or three of these competitors will go away and we'll be fine. We go in there with the aspect of, will our store be okay with every other store maintaining and continuing their business as usual? And that's how we approach it. We do not approach it with the idea that we're going to be shutting down competitors. Again, but based on our model and based on the area, we just felt the area was underserved as far as total number of convenience stores.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, and Councilor Levy.
Question for the city manager and probably for the Casey's as well. Larry, is this a time-sensitive issue? The reason I asked that is because they were shown another option this evening, and I think the gentleman said he's not at liberty to discuss that or answer that. I'm wondering is there a possibility now that we have a new design proposed to them that we push this back to planning so they can look at it and give the gentleman time to meet with whoever he needs to see if that's a viable option for Casey's? I mean, is that...
Casey's will have to answer that. I'm not
Okay.
sure what their timeline was to move forward with their project. So
Okay.
if you'd like to answer that. I think the first question is, would you consider that alternative? And I think Councilor Van de Bogart explained again, we talked just for maybe 30 seconds before the meeting in terms of preserving the streetscape, which was the office corridor, to put the building closer to the road with a front yard, of course, and then to have the canopy on the south side, which would be frontage on Show Pier. But is that a viable option? If not, you should say so right now. We don't want to waste time on it. And the other thing is, what about your timeline? When are you planning on moving forward? When would you like to have a decision on the land use permit?
again, that decision is made certainly well above my pay grade. So my first impression, my experience with those making the approvals, again, we typically don't ever put a store with its back to the road, especially the busiest road. My gut feeling, if you were to, if I was a betting man, I would say the answer would be no. That they would turn and say no. And again, there's several reasons, but one of them obviously is that we want to be sensitive to the neighbors as well. And I think by turning it the other way, now we're just broadcasting everything directly toward the neighbors as opposed to toward the busy street.
That's fair.
And as far as the time frame, we want to get moving as quickly as possible. So as soon as we get approvals, as soon as we get, we will begin work immediately, and our intent is to build it this year.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
it does.
I'm
Thanks.
not sure there's anything here to...
No, that's fine. I just
back.
wanted to make sure that we weren't going to move forward with a vote, and he had the opportunity if he needed to go back to talk to somebody. But I think he answered the question by saying that if he was a betting man, this is what they would do. But I just didn't want us to take action without giving him an opportunity to go back and speak to whoever he had to speak to. So I'm comfortable with that.
I'd like to point out one thing myself and say that if I had to screen the pumps from one group of people or the other, I would rather screen the residences than the funeral home, if it comes down to it. And I think the current proposed alignment does that better than turning the building around. Just a personal observation. I personally want to go ahead and ask a question. Some of the businesses, the owners in the area have come forward and asked us to protect their businesses by turning this down. Mr. City Attorney, is there a possibility that you could speak to the antitrust side of that equation? It's my understanding that that's a tremendous violation of federal antitrust laws to ask for them to ask us to protect their business. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Not acclimated to the new system yet. I think that's actually a fairly complicated question that I don't know if I can, off the top, fully respond to, but I think the city certainly would not want to designate any individual business as receiving special protection from the city to gain competitive advantage. I don't know if that sufficiently responds or not, but if that were the purpose and the stated purpose, I think the city would be and have some difficult challenges ahead of it.
Okay, thank you. That does answer my question fully. Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. I'd like to express two concerns that I have with this proposed project. One is that I am buying into the vision that was created by this body 25 years ago in creating an office corridor, and would like to see that consistency maintained. I think it's unfortunate that there doesn't seem to be any compromise in trying to do that. I also would like to make sure that it's clear that this conditional use permit does include the allowance of alcohol sales, and I feel quite strongly there is a saturation of liquor sales within a half mile of this location, and so for those two reasons I will be voting against this. Thank you.
Councilor Kincaid.
Mr. Dupre, I understand you have pretty good pizza over at Casey's. I didn't hear you mention that when you said what you were going to be serving.
Well, I'll be humble about that, but yes, I think we do. I think we do a pretty nice job of offering.
If you should come, I'd be glad to know that. Will you be having the pizza delivered? I understand at some of your stores you do have delivery trucks or cars. How does that work?
More and more of our stores are going that direction. Again, it's a local operations. If they see the need, if they see the market that our employees can deliver the pizza, and again, there's a need in that area. We began this probably about 2 years ago as an experiment with 1 or 2 stores. I don't know the exact number. I think it's about 25 to 30% of our stores now do offer that. Again, we're going to be very conscious. We want to be good neighbors. The last thing we want to be doing is known for the the delivery that is racing through neighborhoods or are causing a nuisance. So again, I will have to divert that to local operations if they decide to do that. Based on what I see of the area, it would be very logical that they would, just based especially heading, and this thing is turned odd here, going south and southeast, just due to the numbers of residential homes down in that area. I could see us offering that.
Would those be company vehicles or?
No, they're not company.
Staff?
They're staff employed.
Okay, just curious. With respect to employment, I'd be interested in full-time equivalents. How many full-time equivalents?
I can certainly find that out.
That's we know there's always a combination, but 20 or 30 mixture of full and part-time doesn't really tell us.
Sure.
How many hires are going to be.
Right.
How high is the canopy? That's what we see when we drive by. It's the highest thing on the property, I believe.
Give eye to that. I do know it's going to be roughly a standard height.
About 20 feet.
Probably roughly
25.
Diagrams are awful small.
Okay, well, looking at my thumb with it, it looks like it's about 20 feet.
It's under 20.
Okay.
It's right around 20, I believe.
Okay.
Still under that.
From what I've heard from the Planning Commission and from the discussion we've had here, it looks like there are maybe 2 or 3 lines of thought. One is nothing should be there. The other is that if it were the grocery store, the market, that would probably be all right. And the other one is, well, the gas station's not too bad. Let's have that too. So I guess the question is if it's those who feel like there should not be a gas station at the site makes it a difficult choice. My feeling is if the project does go forward, I would hope staff would throw the book away with respect to limiting landscaping. Both sides of both exposures to the street need to be appropriately landscaped. I would hope there won't be any 12-inch shrubs or 1.5-inch caliper trees planted there. But we've already doubled the amount, and I might say that may sound like a lot, but really the minimum standard is quite modest in my opinion. 2, 3, 4 times would probably be adequate with some good professional help in laying out the landscaping. Another point that was raised with respect to schools nearby, sidewalks, in my view, are going to be very important, and we need to understand where they're going to go and probably when they're going to go on both streets. The city engineer and the planners need to determine perhaps where they tie in and how, but I believe that we really have to have sidewalks. When Mr. Murphy testified at the Planning Commission, he pointed out that I'll call it the old folks' home up the street, which will be built fairly soon, will have those who may wish to walk down and get a pizza or a beer or whatever you have. And the sidewalk would certainly be an accommodation for those who live there, as well as everybody else.
And certainly, to answer that question, obviously we've always complied with the needs of the city. Sidewalks in front of our store, and especially this one on Cranston as well as Chopere, would not be unusual for us. I mean, I don't think we would bat an eye at that. So, if that was a need, typically also. in regards to the site, not only the sidewalks coming in, but some type of logical, and I'll kind of point out, some others, sidewalks coming into the parking lot as well.
Certainly.
So, again, we recognize that some people do walk up to our stores, especially in this one, and again, we want to be open and welcoming to that. So, we don't have them on there right now because, and I don't know, it wasn't outlined or a need, but we would see no issues with that.
And Casey's participates in that cost, that development cost.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Chuck. All right. Councilor Spreitzer.
Well, I guess I'm looking to try to get to yes on this while balancing the concerns that have been raised, and if the other alignment is not a possibility, and I take it you don't see any other alignments that would be, correct me if I'm wrong on that. On the landscaping issue, then, I know the condition as currently written requires double the normally required landscaping. I don't know if that's what's represented on the diagram or if that predates that, but I guess I'm wondering if we could. You sort of have a pretty full line of trees along Chopier, not so much on Cranston, which I assume is for the sake of visibility. I guess I'm wondering how far you'd be willing to go in terms of reasonably sized landscaping in that area to help with that buffer zone, and even if there would be any way to kind of maintaining this layout, even to shift south, even just a tiny bit to sort of give you more landscaping space there. Just if you can respond to that idea.
Sure. And again, I don't think this is anything official.
Mm-hmm.
This was really drawn up. Obviously, we want to soften on Cranston especially, but to the same extent, like any other business, we have to be visible so people can see us.
Sure.
You can't build a complete wall. Businesses just don't stay in business when they're completely shielded. So, the existing ones, I believe, are ash trees. Knock on wood, that we're going to survive this wonderful thing, and they'll continue to grow. And I think everyone knows how big ash trees will get. The other ones. Again, once we get to that stage, as far as the commitment that we have, as well as requirements of the city, we're certainly willing to listen. But again, we want to make sure that in some ways we're somewhat visible. Again, we're talking about Chopier, not so much there. And again, we're happy to build a more dense wall there. Again, just we're trying to be as sensitive to the neighbors down there as we can. But I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. I just have a quick question, possibly for Mike Flesch. I guess it was my expectation that our policy was that with any new development that sidewalks would always be considered. Is that not the case here? This certainly is a high pedestrian traffic corner. I would assume there will be sidewalks.
Sidewalks are considered at the site plan review phase. This is a conditional use phase.
I understand that, but just in the
So,
future
yes,
it
we
will
would
be.
Yeah. Mhm.
I just wanted to make sure.
Indeed, no, they haven't been overlooked. They just didn't need to have that brought up as part of their conditional use.
Okay, wonderful.
So yes,
Thank
it's
you.
on the radar, definitely.
Excellent.
Councilor Kincaid.
Just a couple more questions. I see that your structure is 4,200 square feet or so. Is that among your largest?
Currently, right now, we have two different size stores. This is what we call our 00 store. They've always gone up in letters. So this is what we basically have two standard size stores, and the other one it's a little bit smaller store. Communities more of 2,000, 3,000 or less. We'll put that one in. So this is the store that we would put in an area like this.
I understood that most of your stores are in the 3,700 foot range.
That's probably the previous, probably what we want to call the G style store. Is that
this
again?
Is the O style.
Yeah, this is the O style. So.
Okay. I also understand that There's many of your stores have 6 pumps rather than 8 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
So it would not be unusual to have a 6-pump store, would it be?
No, and again, I think right now, from our standpoint, we saw the way the traffic is. Again, we want to eliminate as much. When you get to a certain point, people are going to drive by just because the pumps are full. We don't want to put extra pumps that we don't have to. It looks awful lonely. If you put 8 and really only 4 or 6 was needed, then all of a sudden people are driving by and there's only 2 or 3 cars parked there, and it looks and obviously from another standpoint, just the added cost. So right now, based on our models, we came up with 8. I think the area justifies it. Again, the
I would hope you
traffic.
would look at that again with respect to 6. I think you initially came in with 10 and then dropped it to 8, and now I've done a little bit of research, and it seems that 6 is not an unusual number to have.
Correct, but an area that carries roughly 25 to 30,000 cars a day, most of our sites will have 8, if not more. I'm not quite sure. There may have been an initial drawing. Pretty much that we've always come in at 8 has been what this site what they've recognized. So,
thank you.
Do you have any other councilor questions or comments? All right. Do we have a motion for approval?
Move approval, Mr. President.
Moved by...
I think you need to close the public hearing.
Oh, well, I did close the public hearing. Yes, I did. Well, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so I've moved by Spreitzer, second by Levy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Item passes. Right, 5 to 4, 1 against, and 1 abstention. 5, 1, and 1.
Right, you said 5, 4, and 1.
5, 1, and 1. Excuse me, sorry. 5, 1, and 1. Okay. On to item 5, citizens' participation. We reached the point on the agenda where persons can come forward and speak to the council about items that will come before us or may come before us in the future. We may not act on any items that you bring up, but we may refer you to staff for discussions. Does anybody wish to come forward and speak on item 5, citizens' participation? Second call for persons to come forward and speak on item 5. Thank you, sir. Your name and address.
My name is Roger Kemen. I'm the owner and operator of Ryco at 2549 Park Avenue. A few weeks ago, before this council, myself and others commented on concerns about the wellhead protection program and ordinance that was to be discussed. There were a number of key concerns raised both by the public and the council that evening, which I won't go in and repeat tonight. A vote was laid over on the item until tonight's meeting for approval. The council requested that Mr. Mayes contact the impacted business owners and offer an information workshop to discuss the concerns. Harry set the meeting up for Tuesday, March 26th, and I was in attendance as well as many of the others that were had spoken at that meeting that evening. Larry and Harry conducted the meeting and reviewed the proposed ordinance, answered questions that we had. As a result of the review of the ordinance and following discussions, language changes were offered that resolved some of the issues and offered more clarity to others. Speaking for myself, I believe that the wellhead protection ordinance as presented tonight has been properly vetted and its intention preserved while offering reasonable flexibility to our businesses, and therefore I approve it. I wish to thank Larry and Harry for their time and effort on the process. I thank you as a council for representing or requesting that the ordinance be properly vetted, and I thank my fellow citizens for their active involvement in their government. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to come forward and speak on their citizens' participation? Third and final call for persons to come forward and speak under citizens' participation. Hearing none, I'll close citizens' participation and move on to the consent agenda. Item 6. Consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda. Do I have anyone wishing to remove something from the consent agenda? Councilor DeForest.
Mr. President, I'd like to request that item 6B be removed.
Okay, all right. So any other councilors wishing to remove something from the consent agenda? All right then. So consent agenda will consist of items 6A, 6C through 6G.
Move approval.
Moved by Levy, second by Lubke. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? So we'll now discuss item 6B.
A resolution authorizing final payment of Public Works Contract C1126 Cranston Road reconstruction.
Mr. Flesch.
What are you concerned about? It's pretty custom, so it's just maybe it'd be easier to go that way.
Fine, and unfortunately I found that I've had to ask this as a standard question now going forward. Are you satisfied with all of the terrace reconstruction and repair that needs to be done?
You bet. We've waited for a long, long time, and it's been real good. I can't guarantee how it would survive the drought of last summer and how it's going to recover, but going into that, it was in pristine shape, so you bet.
Move approval.
Moved by Levy.
Second.
Second by Lubke. All in favor of approval of item 6B, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. Move on to item 7A.
The second reading of a proposed zoning text amendment creating Section 5-800 of the zoning ordinance, Article 5, Chapter 19 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit, to be known as the Wellhead Protection Ordinance. The Plan Commission recommended approval, 4-0.
Mr. Mathos.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Good evening. What I want to do tonight through a series of 4 slides is simply kind of bring together the activities of the past few months, few weeks. As Mr. Kevin mentioned, we have sat down, discussed this at great length, and I think we've come up with a very viable document. So I just want to quickly go through the significant changes that have happened from those discussions. As you all know, we transferred several conditional uses to the permitted category. That was one of the items we did early on through the Plan Commission and other recommendations. Based on the workshop, we amended Section 5804C to include qualifying language to address complex projects. What that means is when we sit down, when the Wellhead Technical Committee sits down and looks at potential conditional uses, if it's beyond our scope, we'll have to go outside for either answers or for additional advice. So that's what we're looking at. We'll do it internally first. If it goes beyond our scope, we'll have to look outside. Amended Section 5811C3 to include review by the Wellhead Technical Committee. Prior to that, there was no review. We simply added that at the front, and now we will have an initial review before we would ever have to go outside. We amended Section 5811C. I believe that should read simply D. I believe there was a typo on it. It should read 511D to state conditional use permit applicants are to pay a fee set by council resolution. Okay. We amended Section 5812A1
the document requirement from 45 to 60 days, give them a little more time to provide the documentation provided for the CPU. And we amended Section 5812A2 to replace contingency plan with a spill control prevention plan. Basically, our internal document will serve as the contingency plan. And that's available through the city, and we can certainly assist anybody who may need to fill one out. We amended, the next couple of sections are somewhat the same. We amended both sections. We took out terms such as scientific and engineering and state-of-the-art and replaced it with best management practices. And what best management practices means is you simply take very common sense approaches. There are some guidelines set by the EPA that we can reference that I've already referenced, but they're basically, spill control prevention plans, impervious surfaces, spill containment, labeling, design piping to minimize collisions. We had firsthand experience with that at the wastewater plant when we first started up. You need to be sure you put your piping in proper places, so if you're driving a forklift, you may not hit it. Use of corrosion-resistant materials, and then especially pre-planning with fire officials, getting together with your local authorities to let them know what you have on site, what they can do, and what needs to happen in the event of a spill or some sort of release. And that, again, goes along with the spill control prevention plan. So a lot of these are in place with their business permit, but again, these are sort of the things that we put together through our discussions, and we think we've landed on a very viable and a good document. And that takes me through the presentation. Those are the things that I believe you have those in front of you also. Those are the amendments that we created by virtue of the workshop and other discussion. And I would like to just have a couple of statements that the ordinance before you has been crafted through a collaborative effort between city staff and stakeholders representing various interests throughout the community. Through public hearings, phone conversations, at a workshop, we were able to listen to our stakeholders and incorporate their insight and expertise to fine-tune the ordinance that you're seeing tonight. And Mr. Kevin alluded to that, and it was through their efforts at that workshop that we really put this together. I think that's where this really finally came together. And with that, I'd like to thank the Plan Commission, Council, especially the community, for their efforts in laying the foundation for sustainable water quality for the future and providing a legacy of environmental stewardship. And I think that's what we're doing here. So I'm confident that we've drafted an ordinance that provides flexibility that meets regulatory requirements, and I encourage your consideration for adoption tonight. Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, I move approval of 7A and give thanks to Mr. Mathos, Mr. Kemen, the other individuals across the community who participated.
Moved by Van der Bogaert, second by DeForest. Okay, let's start with Councilor Kincaid.
You've done a great job, and it spoke volumes for the testimony during the public presentation. Thank you. I do have a question about best management practices. Will you have those enumerated specifically? Is there a textbook or a booklet or
I can provide that.
manual? And so it's very clear under which conditions what would be done, what must be done ahead of time to avoid things.
Yeah, I can provide that. I can give you just a very quick run on 5 bullet points of what they refer to. Simple standard operating procedures, which most of us have in our businesses, but simple standard operating procedures. Practices to control site runoff. Practices to control spills or leaks, spill control prevention plans again, proper disposal methods, source reduction, using less toxic solvents or more water-based style chemicals or products, and to capture washed-down waters for recycling or reuse. There's any number. I mean, the document is thick, so there are any number of methods and methodologies available for best management practices, and they just run the gamut.
So it's clear what is a practice as distinguished from a standard. No runoff, or do your best to keep runoff from getting out of hand?
Well, I mean, you know, again, using standard operating procedures, they are well defined within the EPA guidance. Okay, they are well defined. And again, some of the terminology is generalized. I understand that. So again, you need to look at it. Then you need to look at the real life or real time experience to see exactly what you need to do. So you can call it a standard operating procedure, but exactly how do you implement that within your business? And that's when it comes down to the technical review committee and working with the business community to make sure we get it right the first time. Yep. Thank you.
And Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. Actually, I have a follow-up question related to that. Because my first question was related to, do we need to define at least or enumerate a minimum outline of those best management practices in this ordinance, or do you think that the technical review committee will be able to work collaboratively with the proposed expansion or redevelopment of the site? Do you think we need that in this ordinance?
No, I am absolutely confident that the technical review committee can handle any situation. Short of a large chemical manufacturer, which we would need their expertise anyway, or likely.
Right.
I'm confident, that our technical committee can handle whatever situation is put in front of us.
Great,
Absolutely.
thank you. And then my other question is related. First, I'd like to make a comment. I'm pleased to see the language changes that were made that I think help alleviate concerns about controlling costs for some of our small businesses, so I'm pleased about that. I wanted to specifically ask, because I know one of the concerns was the environmental assessment, that could be quite pricey and an unpredictable cost for businesses. And I see that the language has been changed to, I'm looking for the page, I think I have 65 in my notations. Let me get there, sorry. If determined necessary by the Wellhead Technical Review Committee, an environmental assessment report shall be prepared by a licensed environmental engineer. I just want to make sure. I know we've talked a little bit before about who would be on this Wellhead Technical Review Committee. Is it possible that a small business owner could be included on this committee so that they can help kind of reality check? I don't know if that makes sense, but
actually,
giving them a lot of authority to decide whether or not a business has to jump through this hoop, which is a very expensive hoop.
Well, personally, I think that's an excellent idea, because, and I say that because based on our conversations at the workshops and with others, there is a lot of insight, obviously a lot of insight and expertise simply within our business community that could add value to that technical committee. So that's something we could discuss with Larry and others to see if that's something that we could certainly enhance that committee with, yes.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Harry, for being so forward-thinking and collaborative in your approach. It means a lot, and I think you've heard that from the community, how much we appreciate that. I do have one other question. This might seem kind of off the cuff and weird, but I did receive a recent email from a homeowner who was concerned that having this added overlay district would affect the value of their home sale, because in the real estate transaction, that overlay district would come up as a district issue. Do you have any sense of that? I mean, this is happening across the state and across the country. Do you think that homeowners are going to start understanding this is just part of what comes with the territory? I mean, is there anything that we can do to minimize the potential devaluing of a house sale because of this added designation? Do you have any sense of that?
Well, no, I don't have a sense of that. That's not my area of expertise. However, the situation that was presented to you, and again, as I mentioned, I can't see necessarily a devaluation of property. And again, I'm not an expert. But considering the location, the zoning, and the likely use down the road, and to a typical homeowner, I just don't see it. No, I don't. But again, I'm not an expert in that.
Okay.
I'm looking at this from a sustainability position, from a environmental stewardship. So I can't speak necessarily to the economics of that.
Okay.
Forgive me, but I simply can't.
Thank you.
Is that all, Sheila? Okay, thank you. Councilor Van de Bogart.
My questions have been addressed, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Spreitzer.
I also wanted to thank you and the city manager for the work put in on this and for addressing the concerns of affected businesses. I think the changes are all very positive and make it something that I'm comfortable voting for. I like Councilor DeForest's idea of perhaps having a business representative on the committee, and I think if that were agreeable to other staff, it'd be great to see that as an amendment to this in the future. The only little concern I had, and I don't know that anything is needed to change it, but just perhaps a suggestion in 5804C about if staff can't review for technical reasons, retaining the service of professional consultants, and that an applicant's submittal is automatic approval for that to happen. I would just certainly hope that as a matter of policy we would let them know that was going to be needed before going out and doing that, so that they would have a sense of what was coming, and if that wasn't something that they were prepared to do, they would have an opportunity to withdraw their application if that was necessary.
Understood, certainly.
Thank you.
Do we have any other councilor questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor. Do we, I'd like to call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8 on the agenda is appointments. There are none. So now we're on to councilor activities and upcoming events. And we will go ahead and get started with Councilor DeForest.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank Terry and Rick and the EOHRC for their creative ideas for raising awareness about fair housing. I'm excited about the poster contest and their attempts to engage the local community, so I want to thank them for that. And would also like to personally congratulate our fantastic DPW staff once again, who just continues to wow us with their progressive strategies for making the city such a great place and keeping it environmentally friendly. And thank you, Chris and Jody, who I know stayed for quite a while, and your efforts along with the rest of the staff to really make our recycling program effective. I mean, our diversion rate is absolutely incredible, especially considered our demographics, and I know that's because of the time and energy you put into education and awareness, so I want to thank you for that. And finally, I would just like to remind everyone that tomorrow is an election day and would encourage you to exercise your right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Van de Bogart.
Nothing other than urging people to vote, like Councilor DeForest did.
Councilor Kincaid.
I'll vote. And I do want to thank Dave Lupke for giving me a heads up on going to Meals on Wheels. That is an amazing organization. And anybody who hasn't done it yet, go over there and volunteer, and and help deliver them, and it will change you. You want to be there every week or every month, I assure you. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lupke.
Thank you, Chuck. I'll add to that. The Meals on Wheels, they sponsored a race called the Mush Run on a cold Saturday about a week and a half ago. And very successful, and again, promoting the Meals on Wheels program, which is wonderfully successful in Beloit. I also want to, of course, urge people to vote tomorrow, but I want to thank Rebecca and her staff for all the hard work they do, and I'm going to thank them because I know it'll be a successful campaign tomorrow because they're always well prepared and well organized. Big Hill Park a week ago had the maple syrup testing and pancakes, and I was talking to individuals there. It was so busy, so crowded out there. They had over 600 people that they had to run to the store twice to buy more pancake batter. And I said, did you have to buy more syrup too? And he said, yeah, we ran out of syrup, the maple syrup. But it was very successful. And again, this promotes Beloit. It showcases Beloit. And then a final thing, during the week of April 21st to 28th, one of Beloit's very own is coming back to Beloit, Tony Scodwell, who graduated from Beloit Memorial in 1961, who's played with Sinatra, Elvis, The Tonight Show, and many others in Vegas. One of the premier trumpet players in the world is coming back, and he'll be showcased in Beloit that week. And on the 27th at 7:30 at Eaton Chapel, he'll put on a free concert. But there'll be other concerts. There'll be one Sunday with the College Wind Ensemble and Jazz Band, and throughout the week there'll be smaller venues where he'll lecture and talk to people in Beloit. So mark your calendars for that week. Tony Scodwell. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spreitzer.
Thank you. Councilor Lupke is certainly right about the Welty Center Maple Syrup Fest. I was there serving pancakes, and we certainly did run out of just about everything, so it was a great crowd and a great chance to see people, and also great to see our new Visit Beloit director in there taking pictures and advertising it for the community. So a wonderful event, and I am signed up to help out with Meals on Wheels this coming Saturday and look forward to doing that for the first time. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Levy.
Nothing.
All right, and I have nothing this evening, so move on to item 10A.
The spring yard waste presentation.
Mrs. Walsh.
Thank you. I certainly hope we are going to see spring and summer. So this evening, this is your spring and summer program. It begins April 8th through Friday the 19th. I know yards are drying up because mine is at home, and I hope it continues to dry up. For those 2 weeks, residents can put out on their regular trash day yard waste containers. It is $1.50 per sticker per container. The containers should weigh no more than 60 pounds and 39 gallons. Stickers can be purchased all over the city, particularly at City Hall, the Treasurer's Office, the Operations Facility on Springbrook, Grinnell Hall, Leisure Services, both Ace Hardware, Woodman's, and all three Walgreens. And we have a lot of people ask, because of the drought last year, can we use our leftover stickers? Absolutely. They should place yard waste a little bit separate from the trash in either paper or biodegradable bags or clean trash containers, no plastic bags. Brush and shrubbery must be bundled and or tied and include a sticker. Just tie it right to a branch. Each bundle should not be longer than 4 foot, nor 4 foot long, a 4x4, or 4 foot wide. It's just a lot easier to get in the truck. The monthly program will start in May, and this is a change for residents. It used to be the first week of every month. It is now the second full week, because somebody always got gypped kind of that first week. So it's the second full week of each month, and it will run May through October, and again, the stickers will be $150. We included this year for residents the Leafland Compost Center spring hours. They have increased. They're out on St. Lawrence, west of town. Bedrock grinding is no longer in business. So they are open virtually every day of the week, in the mornings, in the evenings, and then Saturdays 9 until 1 o'clock. They will be closed May 25th and 27th. And their June and September hours back off a little bit, but again, they are open Monday, Wednesday in the day and in the evening, and Saturday they'll be closed July 6th, August 31st, and September 2nd. And this is the award. And questions for residents? They can either go on the web, or they can call Leafland or the operations office. Anything else? Pretty simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to item 11A.
A resolution approving a certified survey map for the property located at 2240 Cranston Road for a proposed Casey's General Store. The Plan Commission recommended approval, 4-0.
Madam Christensen.
Okay, the intent of this proposed CSM is to create a buildable parcel for Casey's. The gas station would be constructed on the proposed Lot 1, and the subdivision ordinance requires the remainder of the parent parcel to be included on the final CSM because it's less than 40 acres in size. The proposed Lot 1 will be addressed 2350 Cranston Road. And they mentioned a couple of things that had come up during this review when we were doing the conditional use, which is the CSM includes a right-of-way dedication that is 15 feet wide along Rochelle Pier Road, extending 415 feet. My understanding from the city engineer that would be to widen the road ultimately. And then he's requested additional right-of-way along Cranston Road, which is, my understanding is so that we can, for the sidewalks. So that's what, there's two different purposes for that right-of-way. He did say he would only allow one access drive or curb cut on Cranston Road for both the parent parcel and the new proposed lot. And so he would like a joint access agreement to be shown and recorded on the final CSM. Plan Commission did recommend approval of this unanimously. I know that was confusing, but they did review this first before they got into the details of the conditional use. And the conditions listed in the CSM are that proposed lot 1 shall be addressed as 2350 Cranston Road, the additional 10 feet right-of-way along Cranston Road, the final CSM showing the joint access agreement, the final CSM including the full parcel, and then that the applicant shall record the CSM with Rock County and provide planning and building a copy by the end of the year, and the final CSM actually being recorded before we issue any building permits. And this is coming before you. Most of them don't because it does require dedication of right-of-way, and only council can approve the dedication of right-of-way. So,
Thank you. Do you have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Moved by Levy. Second by Van de Bogart. Do I have any councilor questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Item passes 5 with 1 abstention and 1 nay. On to item 11B.
A resolution awarding contract C-1304, amending the 2013 capital improvements budget and appropriating additional funds for the Pullman Field Concourse Rehabilitation Project.
Thank you. Tonight, we have before you the rebid of the Pullman Field Concourse. 5 bids were received. A quick summary is that we will be improving the pedestrian area by new concrete, some drainage improvements, and a new rain garden will also be installed. 5 bids were received. The low of $72,130.84 was received by R.R. Walton and Company, who is a responsible low bidder. We are asking for $10,819.16 for change orders and extra work for a grand total of $82,950. An amendment to the 2013 capital improvements budget is also required for $24,950, which will be transferred from the 2009 and 2010 Parks Master Plan funds in those respective year CIPs. The Engineering Division recommends awarding the contract for Pullman Field Concourse Rehab to R.R. Walton and amending the 2013 capital improvements budget to cover the additional cost of $24,950. Any questions?
All right. So do we have a motion for approval to start?
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Spitzer and seconded by Lubke. So we'll start with Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. Just for transparency's sake and trying to understand how we tapped into the funding for covering this bid that came in higher than we expected. So these are unspent funds that were returned to the CIP, and I guess I wasn't aware that they remain segregated.
They, yes, they do remain segregated in their accounts.
Okay.
As you award them, as you approve them.
Okay.
If there is an underage in expenditures in those accounts, they remain in that account until the end of the potential expenditure period. It's 3 or 4 years. I think it's maybe 4. I can't remember for sure. The experts are our finance, not engineering. We consulted with finance on this to make sure everything was appropriate.
Okay. And do you know, and maybe I should be asking these questions of Paul, I apologize. Because I did send an email earlier, but I should have CC'd you, Paul, I apologize. What typically happens to these funds that are in these segregated accounts that aren't spent?
Want me to wing it, Paul? My understanding is that.
Well,
Let Paul
Mr. President, if you
Yes,
could,
go
I'd
ahead.
be happy to explain
Sure,
this.
go ahead.
Yeah, funds, first of all, they're segregated because of the bond issue. when the bonds are issued, the funds are designated for a certain purpose, could be anything from stormwater to street improvements to park improvements, and they have to remain segregated thereafter because it's part of the bond covenants as to how the funds are going to be spent. So when we do a project, whether it's a stormwater project or street resurfacing or a park improvement, if we have any funds left over in those accounts, then those funds can be reprogrammed, but they have to be reprogrammed for a similar project. If they're not reprogrammed or reused, eventually they'll roll into the debt service fund and they'll be used for debt service payments at the conclusion of the expenditure period, which I believe is 3 years in Wisconsin by state statute. That's by state law. That's not a market standard. That's a state regulatory standard.
And so just to follow up with that then, if these were funds that were designated for master planning, it's okay to use them for construction?
Still a parks category.
Yeah, it's still parks.
As long as it's a
Park
parks
improvement.
category. Okay, thank you for answering my questions. I just wanted to understand it.
It's hard to wrap our arms around all of that. It's hard for us too.
All right, Councilor Spreitzer.
I guess my main question is, looking back at the bids that we rejected a couple of meetings ago, the engineer's estimate was about $55,000, and obviously it came in way over that because of the timing that we were trying to do, so we moved it to fall. I guess I'm wondering why why the estimate then increased so much despite thinking that that would save money, to then put us over budget, because it looks like we came in fairly close to the estimate, but the estimate went up by about $25,000. I'm just wondering why.
Why the change? When we put our estimates together, we use our best information available. We do flat work, sidewalk type work in 4 or 5 foot widths by long stretches. To do this larger area is not exactly comparable. We increased our rates, what we thought, to our best of our abilities was going to be enough in our initial estimate. Based on the estimates, the bids we received, we revised our estimates based on what we were seeing, taking the weather factor away, the timing factor.
This is a bunch of nooks and crannies. There's tight spaces. There's going to be a lot of hand work, a lot of hand forming, a lot of extra forming that goes well beyond what we normally do when we're doing sidewalks in a public right-of-way. So the initial bids were based on that type of work, and in reality, this is a much more complex project, and that's why the cost came in higher than we had first predicted.
But again, we're looking at almost a $20,000 savings from what we had originally bid, too.
Yeah, there's still a huge savings over trying to do the work. And, of course, as you saw, the weather did anything but cooperate this year. So if we had awarded that earlier bid, there's no way in the world the contractor could have worked. That would have all gone to waste. So it ended up being a good call to wait, but it's still a little more than we initially thought it was going to cost.
Thank you.
Councilor Van den Bogaert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Back when we were asked to approve the redoing of the field itself, the grass, I was certainly surprised at the poor condition that we found it in. I think my fellow councilors were as well. With the completion of the field, with the completion of this work, and the upgrades that apparently have been taking place over the winter, can we reasonably expect that this is the last amount of money we're going to have to put into this field for some time? I understand accidents may occur, tornadoes, et cetera, but are we done with these expenditures pretty much?
The current plan is to hold after the concourses are done. There's some more work that we're planning on doing on the outside portions of the stadium this year, all maintenance-related work. The plan after that work is completed is to go back to using the cell tower fee, that $35,000 that council's been setting aside for the last 3 or 4 years, to go back to doing that, continue to try to maintain the facility. At this time, the team's goal is still to try and develop a new stadium in a more high-profile location to try to increase fan attendance, et cetera, and make the team more successful. They're not interested in trying to do any major upgrades. And as you saw here, everything we did was maintenance related to the field at this time. So that's our plan at present. Now, that may change in the future, but right now that's the plan. We'll be finished after this, and we'll go back to that $35,000 a year and try to keep up with that. That's not a lot of money for that big facility, but we'll see if we can keep up.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the matter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. And now we move on to item 11C.
A resolution supporting a commitment for future pedestrian accommodations along the west side of County Highway G between Sunny Lane and State Highway 11, and declaring that no pedestrian accommodations be provided along other portions of County Highway G in Rock County, Wisconsin, under the responsibility of the Rock County Highway Department.
Mr. Flesch.
County Highway G is being reconstructed as an alternate route for the Interstate 3990 corridor. The DOT in Rock County will be completing this project from Hebe Parkway to Highway 11. Pedestrian accommodations are required as part of the Wisconsin Administrative Code Trans 75. A resolution is required from each jurisdiction when the criteria is met to not install the pedestrian component at the time of construction. The city of Beloit is on the east side. There's a map contained, and you can see it on the screen tonight right now, that will be taking it up to the north side of Thomas Drive on both sides of Highway G, Prairie Avenue, but we still continue on up to Philhauer as part of the city. We'll to get it to the north property line of those fronting on Prairie Avenue at Thomas Drive, and then the Christian school site that is north of that would be required to install their sidewalks at a future date. That's what our resolution is about tonight, saying that we will commit to having additional sidewalks when the development is there and the need is present for this location. So we're meeting the needs tonight with this resolution for Trans 75 to make it so the project can continue to move forward. And you'll see the other jurisdictions around us doing the very same thing in the near future.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Moved by Levy.
Second.
Second by Spreitzer. Councilor Van de Bogart.
I'd asked this question of you privately, Mr. Fleisch, but maybe you could explain it to me again as well as to the public. We're saying by this resolution and the next two resolutions, or excuse me, next one single resolution, that we understand the requirement that we have to have sidewalk. There isn't the demand there for it yet, but if there is, we're agreeing to put it in, but not now.
Correct.
And that's for both these.
That's for all three of the ones that, the next two after this one also.
Right.
But for each one of those also that I forgot to mention is that the bike component is already being handled with on-road bike paths in each one of those. So the bike component is there. This is only the pedestrian component that's not being met.
Because as I get older, I get wobblier on that bike. And so does Lupke, and I think Mr. Arf does too.
I don't hate this. It's going to be a straight line
but,
here.
We need that space here. Thank you.
Councilor Spreitzer.
First, a question related to this, and I think it would apply to the other two. The bike paths, are they required along the entire length of the route, both in the city and the rest of it?
Yes, sir.
And then, given that we're anticipating in this case that there would be a future need for sidewalk, I believe, is there any efficiency gain to just going ahead and putting it in now while the rest of it is being put in? Was that factor considered? And who pays for it when we ultimately do need to install it?
The developer will pay for it when we ultimately need to install it. We're taking care of it as part of the project. I should say the state's taking care of it as part of their project, as part of the project costs, along with the county at this point, on the already developed locations that are receiving the sidewalk.
So the reason for not putting it in now is to wait until the developer is going to pay for it and needs it.
No need. I mean, it will. The sidewalk would lead to nowhere. At least now we'll end it, at the end of the property line of the last house. Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor DeForest.
Thank you. How wide will the bike shoulder be?
There will be a 5-foot bike lane.
Okay, so that seems ample enough. Do you know what material, or is that something we have to kind of negotiate with the DOT?
Probably be an asphalt one, given the location
It
of the
will be
roadway.
asphalt?
Most
Okay.
probably.
great.
I don't believe they're going to do a concrete road. I haven't seen anything that said that yet.
Right, but you don't think it'll be gravel?
Oh, no, it'll be a
Okay.
paved shoulder. Definitely a paved shoulder.
Okay, great. And then I wanted to I guess follow up with my colleague's question about who's paying, because I understand that there's no need for sidewalks on this section. I'm a little more concerned about sidewalks on the upcoming 2 resolutions, but I think it'd be okay to ask those questions right now. Sure. Was the school district consulted at all about their feel for the need for sidewalks in these areas, in all 3 of the areas? I'm assuming this first resolution is a moot point, but in the next 2 areas?
Our school district or Turner School District?
Both.
Both.
They're related.
The DOT is the lead on this project, and I am not privy to exactly who they meet with, but they have been at the table at other meetings.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that, yes, they have been coordinated, because you'll see in the next one coming up that they're actually putting sidewalk in going west on Inman Parkway to accommodate for safe routes to school, for them to continue on with their Safe Route to Schools grant that the Turner District has received, or Tom and Beloit has received.
Right.
So that coordination is ongoing. We're not going east, if I may go into the next one here briefly, because there is no development planned at this time. It'll be handled at the intersection itself, but I was going to get to that next. But
Okay, and then just so we're clear, certainly in this first resolution, I don't want to put a hardship on those residents that live there to have sidewalk when it's not needed. But for these other 2 sections where sidewalk seems probable, that it will be needed at some point, maybe even in the near future, I just want to clarify, it doesn't make sense to make the DOT pay for that? Versus, because if it's residents, they're going to pay for it.
there's a criteria set forth that they evaluate based on current need and projected future need. And based on our agreements with the town of Turtle, our boundary agreement and everything else, there's only about 1,000, 1,500 feet, maybe 2,000 tops in the city limits that is all currently agriculture and owned by one large farm that has expressed no desire to have anything but ag. So given the communications they've had with the adjacent property owners to the Inman Parkway extension, it was determined to not install sidewalks at this time because there's no planned development in the near future, probably within the planning phase of the next 15 to 20 years, according to the property owners.
Right. I'm thinking, though, of the residents that live in that Inman Parkway corner housing apartment complex.
There will be sidewalks on the west side.
Okay.
And there will be sidewalks that go across to the east side.
Okay.
To tie in to just that portion. But the sidewalks to the east will have sidewalk that'll go north and south on both sides, like you saw on your diagrams in your packet. So that will tie into the sidewalks along Prairie Avenue Highway G all the way up to Thomas Parkway.
And then
so they will be connected, yes.
Okay, and then just to clarify, and I'm sorry if I'm just not
No,
getting
it's okay.
this. I want
It's
to
hard
make
without
sure
the map,
I understand. Because currently, right now, when I drive up and down Prairie Avenue, there's no sidewalk on the east side of the street. There's only sidewalk on the west side. From let's say.
You're talking further south of Hubie Parkway.
Yes.
Yes, we're not doing anything south of Hubie Parkway. So we're going from Hubie Parkway north. There will be sidewalk on the east side and west side of Prairie Avenue up to Thomas Lane, Thomas Drive.
Okay. Which
on
is
both
where those
sides,
apartments are.
which is past those apartments.
Okay.
It's, where the Isaac Walton League hunting.
Yes.
To the north side of that.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, that's past the
sports complex.
Yes,
my
past the
kids
sports
have
complex
played
too.
baseball out
So
there.
it'll be in front of the sports complex too. So that was all taken into account, and that will be an urban section. That'll have curb and gutter and sidewalks.
Okay.
So they are taking all that into account.
I was going to add, that's the other criteria that's come into play here is the roads where they're recommending leave the walks off for now are the rural cross sections where you do not have curb and gutter. And it's hard to put walks in and maintain walks on a rural cross section where you have just a paved shoulder. And so what they're recommending is to take them off of there. They're not needed anyway. We'll have the walks where we have the urban cross sections, which will be basically look like a finished city street. And then the other areas may or may not be updated at some future date. Right now, there are really no development plans, particularly for the Hubie Parkway piece. There are no development plans at all for that. That's strictly being built as a connector.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from councilors? Hearing none, we'll move on the motion of 11C, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 11C 7-0. Now we'll move on to 11B.
A resolution supporting a commitment for future pedestrian accommodations as part of the Safe Routes to School program along the north and south sides of the Inman Parkway from Prairie Avenue approximately 400 feet to the west or to the approximate project limits of the Inman Parkway Extension Project, and declaring that no pedestrian accommodations will be provided along the extension of Inman Parkway east of easternmost radii of the intersection of with Prairie Avenue in Rock County, Wisconsin, under the responsibility of the Rock County Highway Department.
Mr. Fleisch.
Refer to your map. There you go. So you see we have in red, the new sidewalks as part of the Highway G. The sidewalks in blue that you see will be installed as part of the Inman Parkway extension, so we do go west. And the area to the east and west that are kind of that mustardy yellow color are where we're not indicating any sidewalks at all, okay? So our jurisdiction is to the east. So from the blue lines on the north and south side of Inman Extension east, where the yellow lines are indicated, and that will go all the way over to Chaupier Road, will not have sidewalks. Same reasonings. There will be the bike paths on road paved as part of the Inman Extension project. And so we recommend approval of the resolution.
Okay. Moved by Levy, or Lukey, second by Levy. Any additional questions? Okay. Councilor Kincaid.
Are the bike lanes on both sides of the street?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
It's a grand thing.
Ready?
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the matter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes 7-0. Now we're on to item 11E.
A resolution declaring that no pedestrian accommodations be provided as part of the Interstate Highway 39 project along Hart Road in Rock County, Wisconsin, under the responsibility of the city of Beloit.
Very good. The map on this one, you can see that under the jurisdiction of the city is from the Chaupier Road east to the east property line of the church there on the south side. And we go to the north right-of-way line of Hart Road in the same location. The yellow lines indicate where there will not be sidewalk installed across, and that will go all the way over to Hart Road, along Hart Road, all the way to Highway X or the 43 interchange. We do have a bike path underneath the 43 interchange that starts at Clinic Road, so that gives them the pedestrian accessibility at that point. Same deal, it's being done by the DOT. There's no money from the city to be involved in this. It's about 250 feet, maybe 350 feet of right-of-way. The deal we cut with the DOT was build it and we'll not obstruct you. Don't send us a bill. So, but to meet the Trans 75 requirements, the same issues as the last two, here we are. We move approval.
Moved by Lubke, second by Van de Bogart. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the matter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution passes 7-0.
Move approval.
Move on number 12. That's would be moved by Levy, second by Spreitzer. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.